Hello guys, welcome back to Archangel RC and to the last video on the SIYI HM30 Full HD FPV system for this year. Hahaha, got you there, didn't I? For an instant your stomach started to ball up and your heart skipped a bit, didn't it? You can calm down now. I know it has been a while since the previous test, but between weather and some other things that needed doing, it took a while to get to the flying field, not realizing that I needed to put the phone in airplane mode for the SIYI app to connect and work as it should. Also did ruin one outing, so that delayed things by another week, but finally I managed to chance upon a good day and to do yet another flight, this time again in the 24km mode, but with the large antennas. Only drawback was that at altitude there was a good amount of headwind, which was not very good for the distance I was aiming to reach. Now, a few things to touch on from the last video. SIYI said they do not recommend changing modes in flight just in case something does not go as planned. So try not to do that way too often or far from home point. I was going to test with the smaller directional antennas and stock stick antennas first before the large ones, but since the delay I thought I'd leave those for later and go for the large antennas now. As for the app, pay attention to the process. Put the phone in airplane mode and then manually enable the Wi-Fi and connect to the HM30 ground module. Only after that run the SIYI app and it will connect to the camera right away. If you leave the mobile data running, the app will not connect. Not sure why this happens, but it is better to put the phone in airplane mode anyway. I certainly don't need anybody calling me while I'm flying. Also, in addition to the Mavlink OSD, the app can show the HD system's Osd Overlay with linked data, which may be useful to see, especially if troubleshooting. I'm going to leave this on for this flight, somebody might find the information interesting. So with everything now working and the new antennas mounted on the tracker, the duck was off and the test was underway. Speed was quite high at first, which was nice, but sadly the higher I went, the stronger the headwind became. And here I would like to make one more suggestion to SIYI to also add the wind speed and direction indicator to the OSD. Will be pretty useful to me and I assume a lot more people, especially in windy conditions. I was using a newer version of the app in this test and they had fixed the speed issue, but please, I beg you, fix that home arrow with priority because it points to every other direction except home point, hence why I have to use return to home every time I get too far out. If I have to rely on the arrow, I'd end up somewhere very far off. Now, despite me realizing the plane won't get very far because of the headwind, I pressed on because I wanted to see if change of antennas in this mode, unlike the 5 and 8km modes, will yield more range. A while later, the duck was closing in on the 18th kilometer and I would have to say, expectedly, it passed it and did not freeze after that. Kept working past it, so I thought I'd wait a bit more, and so the 19th kilometer came and then the 20th. Initially I had planned to turn back here because I was worried about the battery, and also since I took off, wind picked up at ground level, of course blowing in the direction where I would have to come back from, so that did create a bit of a worry as well. However, I did feel like 20 kilometers was only 2 kilometers more than 18 and it felt like too little. It needed to be more, so I held out until the 21st kilometer and not long after it came and went and the video feed was still good. At this point I flipped the return to home switch and the plane turned around, but unlike before, this time apart from some short freezes during the turn, I did not lose the video feed and had a very good signal all the way back from 21 kilometers away. I can tell you with absolute certainty that no analog system is that clear and detailed at 21 kilometers. Not saying you should all switch to digital right now and never look back, but some people keep arguing about image quality and so on, especially at distance, but I just can't agree that the analog looks as good. Comparing the two, image detail and quality wise is pointless because the HD will win every time. Hands down. The benefits of analog are in other areas, but I will get to those in a bit. Now, I want to turn your attention to something else though, the output power. Keep in mind that this system, at least according to what the specs claim, is running at 320 milliwatts. Now, during this test flight, it did 21 kilometers with the larger antennas, where the smaller ones failed at 18 kilometers before, and the way things were going now, I have a feeling it would have gone at least to the 24th kilometer without issues and possibly more, which is something I will test very soon. And I may even move the system over to the Flying Dragon so I don't have to worry about flight endurance and range limitations, and all of that on 320 milliwatts. Now, I would like to see how far an analog system would go at 320 milliwatts with these antennas, but out of experience I can tell you that any range with the same antennas over 14 kilometers would be quite surprising. And before you start yapping on about how you go out to 50 kilometers at 200 milliwatts with a 1.3 GHz system, please pay attention to the fact that this is a 5.8 GHz system, so I am comparing it to a 5.8 GHz analog system, not the 1.31. Still remains to be seen how the system will perform at lower altitudes, but for that I will probably have to go to another location, because this one here is not the best for such tests. Also, may test this system to the problematic top of the mountain next to the city and see if it does any better than the analog one, which is pretty unusable to fly up there now. As for this latest test, I know 3 kilometers more than the last time is not much, but at least it showed something important, that antennas do matter in this mode. As for latency, it is possible the delay may be a bit higher than the 5 and 8 kilometer modes, but I assume this can be expected. The system is definitely not meant for use on racing copters and for proximity flying in its current state and latency performance, but it is more than adequate for long-range flights, especially at altitude. At no point during this flight, when testing the control and reactions of the plane at distance, did I feel disconnected from it due to abnormally high latency, so for my purposes it works fine in the 24 km mode. We'll test the 40 km mode another day. But this is where the analog systems have an advantage, because their latency is noticeably lower, which is important especially for lower altitude flights and racing copters. I can only hope that in time, HD in general and CE in particular would improve on that, and also that they will find a way to make the camera and air units smaller, which is yet another area where the analog systems have a huge advantage, and also in the cost department. Right now, I would like to wish you all a happy and successful new year, and would like to thank all the people who have supported me in any way and will hopefully continue to do so. All the best to everyone, and I will see you in the next 2022.